Hello YouTube, and especially all you knife lovers out there. I finally have it. After over a year of looking for an opportunity to pick up one of these, I finally have my Survive GSO 4.1 knife in. This is a very highly recommended, a very highly touted knife. I've heard a lot of great things about it, and it's something I've been wanting to try myself for quite some time. I missed the pre-order window for these. Then at the end of the summer, they kept delaying the order date because the steel wasn't ready. And finally, around Christmas time, they put these on order where you could order them. I placed my order just after Christmas, and the turnaround time was supposed to be 5 to 15 business days. They were having a hard time getting supplies and things for the handle scales, and then they had a couple knife shows, I think. So after 7 weeks from the order date, I finally have my copy in, and I can't wait to get it out and use it. I did 1 or 2 minutes worth of feather sticking, and I batoned through one piece of dry wood the day I got it, just because I really wanted to get out and just start messing around with it right away. I can't wait to test it out, but I would like to kind of show you the knife in detail now, compare it with some other knives I've had, give you my initial thoughts, and then again, hope to get this out in the field soon. The first thing that I'll mention is the basic design of the sheath. And the first thing I want to take note of about this sheath is the silence of it. Sometimes kydex can come somewhat loose, or other people have only had experience with maybe a plastic or a Zytel style sheath, like maybe something with a Mora or the SE family, something like that. Fall Nivens, the Zytel sheaths tend to be noisy, the blade tends to rattle, but no problem with this. That slight rattling you're hearing is actually the belt loop against the back. This is very quiet on the hip, so hunters and stuff will like that option for sure, like that benefit for sure. The belt loop is a good design. It's kydex. The problem I have with it is where it's situated, and apparently this is a problem or a kind of a nagging issue that a lot of people have had. Because the belt loop itself sits just over midway through the sheath, and the knife itself protrudes so high out of the sheath itself, this sits extremely high on the hip. In fact, this does protrude into my rib cage. So Survive has an option for that. They have a new kydex / leather dangler modification that they have, which if you know my videos, you know that's how I prefer to carry my knives. One, because it drops the knife to a more comfortable height to get it. And two, because I'm a hammock camper, I like the ability for the knife to float freely off my hip so that I can get in and out of my hammock without this pushing into the fabric. So that is something I will be getting. Unfortunately, like everything else from Survive, at least at this point in time, they're out of stock. It's almost impossible to get them. They're a very popular company, and they're having a hard time keeping up with demand. So hopefully I'll be able to get one of those soon to try out. But I did come up with a quick solution, or a temporary fix, which I'll show you in just a second, that I was kind of pleased about, which will allow me to carry this in a dangle setup. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. There's not a lot of holes in this kydex sheath versus something like an SE. If you're used to an SE, you have a lot more holes and configurations and ways of doing things, but it's not detrimental. If you do want to get a fire steel loop added, which I plan on doing, most of them that I've found online have a 1.5 inch loop distance, so that you can hang one kind of at an angle off either side, which would then, with some sort of a belt configuration, free up only 2 holes. I don't see it being a problem for most people, but something to consider. But overall, very nice design sheath. The only thing I found about it so far that's it's only slightly annoying, it's nothing major, but something that I will point out is typically when grabbing these, you use your thumb to depress the kydex to unlock the knife. You can hear the loud click. It's very, very secure around the finger guard area right here. And doing that isn't a problem, but as I've found, I'll try to show you close up with kydex, or this kydex, when I push my thumb in there, the kydex splits, and I have found that after doing it several times, it will pinch my finger. Nothing serious, but the SEs don't really do that. The SEs have a complete fold, so there is a seam right here, but it doesn't widen too much, and this has got a good, soft, quality to it, kind of a polished in here. So when I take I'll just get the SE4 here, and I come in and out with it, this is a lot softer, And so I've never really experienced that pinching before. Am I being picky? Yeah, maybe, but just something I want to point out. Again, I would never not buy this knife because of that, but you know, something that I found just in the first 2 days of playing around with the knife. So there's the sheath. Let's look at the knife itself. In my opinion, a beautiful blade. I really do like the design and the quality of this knife. As soon as I had it in my hand, the balance, the weight, the everything about it just feels really, really good. It is somewhat reminiscent of a Bravo 1, in my opinion. I don't have the Bravo 1 any longer to compare it to, but if things go well here, and if money and time permit, I would like to look at the new Bravo 1 LT, which I think due to thickness overall, maybe with the Bravo 1 LT, this has got kind of a drop point. The Bravo 1 LT has a similar taper at the tip, not quite as extreme. I think that the LT with the Hunter version, and this would be two very, very nice knives to compare. And maybe I'll get to do that in the future. But that's what it kind of looked like coming out of the package to me. The biggest difference between this and any other knife that I've personally had experience with is the pattern of the steel. I'm going to try to show that to you now. I hope you can see that there. It looks like almost like metal that you would see in a interior design of like a contemporary office building. I've seen this type of pattern before and I can't remember quite where it is, but it's a tumbled design is what they call it. It's tumbled steel. And it's smooth to the touch. It's almost like the steel's been tumbled and then this is kind of polished over. So it's incredibly cool in my opinion. I really do like it a lot. That's the thing that jumped out most to me about it. You're gonna see that there's jimping up here at the top. The jimping is very nice, very similar to what I had experienced on the SE Laser Strike. I'll get that for you now here. So if this will focus, you can kind of see, here's the SE. A lot more rounded humps, kind of a lot more even like this. And these are kind of flattened out, but they both offer decent traction. The traction on this is probably a little bit better. Nowhere near as sharp as the jimping on the Bark Rivers, especially like on the Bushcrafter. It's a lot sharper, but very nice, coated with the same kind of coating that they've done all the knives, so it's smoothed over, it's rounded. The edges of the spine are rounded. So in my early testing of the throwing sparks with a part of the blade that's not cut for it, I did it here. It'll do it, not nearly as good as this ferro notch here. And I have to tell you, this ferro notch does an outstanding job of throwing gobs of sparks out, a good supply, increasing the chances of getting a fire going. So it's not very deep at all, as you can see right there. When I get this out in the field and test it, I will show you the spark throwing ability, but it is outstanding. There is some jimping on the butt of the knife too, down here on the pommel area. It's the same quality, so it'd be good in, sorry, the camera's focusing on its own, in reverse holding, getting the thumb up on top, striking with it, that sort of thing. It increases resistance. And then underneath this, back in that recessed area right here, you can run your lanyard or rope or whatever through there that you may want to secure for either finding it, which I'll do. I'll probably put a Chris Reeves style snake knot off the bat in Hunter Orange just so I can find it if it falls. But I typically don't, sorry about this focusing here. There we go. I typically don't wrap lanyards around my hand or wrap paracord around my hand or anything anymore. You can see the green micarta handle. Very well done, very well designed. Apparently this was the last part of the weight, was because these were still coming in from the distributor. And then the pins are stainless steel and you can remove them with a Phillips head or a washer or that type of thing if you had it as part of your kit. And then you can use this better as spear if need be, to clean in there or whatever, but you can take the handles off for additional modifications. As you can see, it is a saber. I don't know if I can show it to you this angle, but it is a saber grind. Right there is probably a decent look at it. And then there is the cutting bevel down here is the V-edge. And honestly, that's the only thing about the knife that I'm not crazy about right at this point. If you've watched my other videos, you know that I really do prefer a convex grind on my knives. Again, that's always personal between people or with users, but that's something I do prefer. I do like some Scandi grinds and stuff as well, but as a general rule, I prefer convex. Right now, this is the only grind that Survive issues their knives in. I guess they may consider doing something different in the future per their website, but right now, the saber grind is the only option unless you want to modify it yourself. So I'm not a huge fan of the V-edges. They typically dull a lot quicker in my experience. They're not as sharp right out of the box. This is a sharp knife, don't get me wrong. It does a paper cut test pretty good. I don't have any paper here to demonstrate with, but it is sharp right out of the box. I will probably put a secondary bevel down. I'll probably make this cutting edge a convex, a small convex, like I did on my Bushcrafter from Blind Horse. You can see that came with a V-edge too, and that little convex edge is much sharper. It holds up very, very well, and then it's a lot easier to strop. So I will probably wind up doing something like that on this knife, but for the introductory video, I wanted to show it to you as it came. A beautiful knife, a well-balanced knife, a surprisingly light knife given the blade size on it, something that was a huge plus for me. And I really do like this. So I want to show it to you compared to some other knives real quick that you may have had a lot of experience with, or seeing it side by side will help you get a better idea of the size of this knife. So I'm going to put this one kind of right here for now. The first one I'm going to show it to you next to is the largest knife in the bunch overall, the beefiest knife. That is the SE Laser Strike. Again, my best friend bought this from me a long time ago, not long after I did the videos actually. He just really fell in love with it. So I borrowed it back from him to do a comparison here. The jimping's fairly similar, you know, some of the materials are fairly similar. The thickness is in favor with the SE by a slight margin, but this gives you an overall length kind of size comparison, I would think. Let me move these down a little bit here. So again, that's the SE Laser Strike. The next one I have in long, I'll put this at the very top, is the Enzo Camper. Similar handle length, kind of thickness. Of course, there's different designs in this with the palm swell and stuff, kind of reminiscent of a Bravo with a little bit less extreme contouring. So the sizes are similar in the handle category, but the blade's obviously longer on the Enzo. So we'll put this up at the top. Another knife I was going to show you, one that it's very comparable to, is the SE4. Forgive the pattern on the blade. I was doing some kind of patina testing with with some stickers to see if I could get a pattern in, and just anyway, it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. But again, for size, that puts it in a similar family. The jimping, again, very similar on these. The blade thickness, fairly similar. So these two very, very close. I'll show you another one here in a minute. Another knife that it's very close to. Then the one I already showed you to is the the Blind Horse Bushcrafter. A smaller blade, but again, similar handle materials, thicker, rounder handle. You can see the blade is shorter on this one. Thickness about the same. This one has no jimping. There's that kind of the Chris Reeves bright orange that I told you I'd do. I'd probably put something like that on this one. And then just for, again, kind of comparison, this is the other one I have in 3V. It's the Fox River from Bark River. So there are some size comparisons. I know the camera's at a weird angle, but that's, you know, gives you a good idea of how this knife falls in relation to some of the other knives I have or you may have had experience with. So I want to focus mainly on a couple, just a couple knives here as far as materials and stuff go, which are these three. Handle material is closest to the Blind Horse Bushcrafter. They both have the micarta. The blades are about the same thickness as you can see here, and the blade length is going to go slightly to the advantage of the 4.1. Again, right now this is in my top 3 knives preference-wise. This one and the Fox River are my 2 go-to knives currently. This could change some of that. Let's see if it does later on, but that's why I really get this out and compare it. This is an extremely comfortable handle. I love the roundness of this handle. Not for everybody. You can see I've done some Dremel work, cross-hatching the front to give it a lot more traction here. But kind of in a similar quality family, I would say, those two knives. And then this is, as far as blade size, from a knife that's very popular and overall length, the SE4 and again the 4.1. See, handle length is going to be longer on the 4.1, which is over here. And that's one of the biggest complaints that I and some other people have about the SE4 is the handle. I don't have huge hands, but you can see that right here, my pinky's coming up close to the end. On this one, I have a lot more room to work with. You can get the scale extenders for these. They are quite a bit more money. It's like another 50 bucks just for scales. They do cover all the way to the end, so it does give you a little bit more length. But overall, it's a very good comparison in size and heft. This one does feel a little bit heavier. I'll weigh them in a minute for you. But I wanted to give you an idea of size. And then another knife I have, I actually got this for my wife. She liked the handles on the fall nivens. And so I got one of these for her to try, and it's really hardly ever been used. And this is the Cold Steel Master Hunter. But these two are kind of reminiscent of each other as well. So if you're familiar with the Cold Steel Master Hunter, then you're in a very, very similar size boat. The blade design is very similar, except for this being kind of a very, very slight drop point, and this being more to like a hunter style that you would see in other knives. So there are those two side by side as well if you're familiar with the Master Hunter. Now that brings me to something else I looked at on the Master Hunter Sheath, and that is it does have a dangle modification. That's how it mounts. It's got this portion up here, and then it clips to the back. So these are adjustable. The screws are adjustable here in width, and it happens to fit the kydex on the 4.1. So I'm going to take a cut, and when I come back, I'll show you this belt loop added to the GSO 4.1 sheath. All right, and here the GSO 4.1 has the dangler or the hip belt portion from the Master Hunter. You can see it secures it up toward the top, and it drops the hip point, the belt point from here all the way up to here. So it's at least a 4 to a 5 inch gain on height. I think the mod for the leather kydex option that GSO offers, Survive offers for this knife is going to make it even hang maybe a tad bit lower, which is fine with me, but for the time being, this will work well. The next time you see this, I may have added that small convex to the edge. I have liked the way this one is performed better with it, and I think this will move it up a couple notches in my book for me, because a little bit of the feather stacking and stuff I did, I think this steel can perform better than it's doing with this edge right now. So I will probably take the risk and go ahead and try to modify this without deterring from the beauty of the knife so far. We'll see what happens. All right, I'm gonna weigh them now for you. I just pulled out the original 6 that I compared size-wise. Why not? I'll go ahead and grab the Master Hunter as well. It's a fairly light-feeling blade. It won't take that long. This is a fairly stout weighing knife for its size. Again, the Blind Horse Bushcrafter in 01, 7.3 ounces. The SE4 feels fairly similar to the Blind Horse. 7.1 ounces, so very, very close in weight. This is the Enzo Camper. Again, a lot longer blade, but a light overall feel. It's a 6.4 ounce knife. The Master Hunter, 5.9, so right about 6 ounces, a fairly light feeling knife for its size. This is the 3V Fox River, 5.5 ounces. The SE Laser Strike, 9.2 ounces, so the heaviest knife so far. And then the 4.1, 6.4 ounces. So a fairly mid, it feels like about the Enzo. This is 6.4, 6.4. So if you've handled an Enzo camper, you've got the same weight in a slightly snub nose version of that knife. Obviously, the weight in this knife, the steel not very as long, but you get more in the blade height. So if you're familiar with the weight of an Enzo camper, okay, and I would say even the handle's somewhat similar, except you don't have this strong taper in the front, but if you have a sanded micarta handle, it's gonna be fairly similar to it. This in weight and handle material is fairly similar to the 4.1. I hope that kind of helped you out a little bit. Introduction to the knife. I'm sure there's a lot of other videos out there on YouTube that have compared these to other knives. These just happen to be knives that I own, that I've reviewed before, that I thought I would show you comparisons of to give you an idea of what you're getting in the 4.1. So there you go, guys. The GSO 4.1. I've been waiting over a year to get my hands on one and finally have it. Hope you found something helpful in that introduction there, and I look forward to testing it very soon. As always, until next time, guys, be safe and God bless.